how'd you get started in stand-up comedy?
Well, I got started because I had watched a lot of comedy on TV and I liked it. And I had a girlfriend that did not support me, thought I would not make a good comic, and then we broke up. And I was focused on making money. It was kind of a combination of tired of only focusing on money and trying to prove her wrong. So I went to Toastmasters, did a Toastmasters meeting for like 8 weeks, and then I took a comedy class and an improv, and then I did a show, and then I was hooked. That was in 2005. So it was 11 years now.
So how much of time have you spent on the road between then and now?
On the road?
Yeah.
I mean, it varies. Every year I do less and less, but I don't know, I probably only driven like 20,000 miles on the road for comedy total. I don't really do that far. I stick to Florida, but I've done North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama. I never want to go to any of those states ever again. They're horrible places.
What's the difference between there and Florida?
Well, the places I went, the difference was I just couldn't connect to the people there. In Alabama, we got there, it was this nice restaurant, nice seafood restaurant, and the guy's bragging to me about how I'm going to like the place he puts us up. Normally we stay in really crappy hotels, but this place was a, let me get to that part. So he tells me that it's this nice house, comedy house that we put up in, and everybody compliments him on it. All the bands stay there, the bands compliment him on him. When we go to the directions he gave us, and it was me and another comic, and we're passing all these really nice houses. I mean, really nice houses. Probably like 3,000 plus square feet homes, really nice neighborhood. And I was on the way out there, I was like, I have a feeling this is going to be a trailer. I just know this is going to be a trailer. And I'm seeing, I was like, oh, it's not going to be a trailer, look at these homes. And sure enough, right after all these houses, there's a single wide. That's where we go. We walk inside and it just smells of mildew and mold. There was no soap of any kind in the entire place, and on the beds was just one single sheet. No bedspread, just a sheet and a pillow with no pillowcase. And that was it. And this is what he thought was nice. I was like, all right, well, this is different in Alabama. This is Orange Beach. It was supposedly the nice part of Alabama, too.
And no one else complained about this beforehand?
A few did, but I guess some thought it was nice.
As compared to what, though? I mean, how bad is it somewhere else that is the good thing?
Well, I haven't had this myself, but I know a comic who stayed at a place and had to put a chair against the door because there was no lock. It was at a hotel. There's another place that I'd been given a room in a hotel that had no AC one time in the middle of summer at 95-degree weather. No AC. And I offered to let them, it was in Daytona Beach. It was the weekend of the Daytona, or not Daytona 500, the Pepsi 400. It was sold out, and I was working for the hotel, so they gave me the last room they had available that they couldn't sell anybody. So I even told them, I was like, I'll drive home to Tampa if you want to rent this room out, because I'm not staying in this room. I can't sleep in 95-degree weather. So they offered me $10 in gas money.
That gets you to like maybe Lake Mary, doesn't it?
And this was back when gas was really expensive. It was like 2007. So it was like at the peak.
Like $4.98 a
yeah.
gallon? Yeah.
And I still drove back. I was like, I ain't staying there. And I had to drive back the next night to do the show. But that was still better than Alabama. Because Alabama, I couldn't drive back home. There's no option.
Why do you think that they provide such bad accommodations? Is it because they just can't afford it, or?
Because they don't want to pay for it. That's the main reason why. I've done places where it was really nice hotels in Jacksonville. This place, Latitude 360. They gave me a really nice hotel. I loved going there for that reason alone. But there was other things about it. This place, though, they had $1.5 million on their lighting and sound in the room, and they were making $13 million a year. Of course, the CEO was pocketing most of that, and now he's about to be indicted, and they went out of business since then. They got shut down because they were $6 million behind on rent. But that's kind of an exception to the rule, I guess.
What are some of your favorite places to perform?
Comedy clubs, real comedy clubs, not restaurants that do it on the side. I hate bars. Places that were specifically designed for comedy and comedy alone are the best. Low ceilings, something about high ceilings. I think it's because laughter escapes. I like corner stages. you know, anywhere from 100 to 300 seater. Anything more than that, kind of, it doesn't, you lose touch.
What about smoking in the comedy clubs? Has that made a difference over
Yeah.
the years?
It's when I started, right around the time I started, is when a major club that I worked at, Syxx, was in Tampa, stopped doing smoking night. They used to have like 1 or 2 nights a week that allowed smoking, and I'm not a smoker, so I like that. And also allows more people to come out. I notice people laugh more, probably because they have the ability. They're not hacking up a lung or walking outside to take a smoke break as much. Well, I guess actually that happens more now, but.
You see a lot of people just kind of walking out to
Yeah, it
smoke
happens
a
a lot.
cigarette?
Not as much as it used to. I've noticed it comes down a lot over the last few years, but yeah.
What if they allowed vaping in the comedy club? Do you think that would make a difference at all?
Some do,
Mm-hmm.
but there's not. Most people that vape don't have much of a sense of humor, so they don't get in comedy clubs.
So all vapors are just kind of humorless
A lot
dicks?
of them, not all of them, but a lot. I know a lot of comics that vape. Some of them even sell the e-cigarettes after the show. One comic's sponsored by an e-cigarette company. He will sell them after show. That's his merchandise.
Does he like sign the vaping juice or
I
something?
don't know.
Or is it
I
just
don't know if he signs anything. He just he's not famous, but he sells it. Actually, there's a couple of comics I think that do it.
Uh, as far as acts that you've had to follow or that have followed you, what are some of your favorite people to work with on the road?
Funny comics who have their own material. That's it. I don't really care about anybody else. Comics that are fun to work with are usually the ones that are different off stage. A guy named Flip Schultz, the funnest guy I've worked with. We would make fun of each other on stage and off stage, and it was one of the funnest weeks I had. There's a comic by the name of Del Jones, who I imagine one day is going to be a household name. He's the funniest guy I've ever worked with. He's the only guy I've seen get standing ovations at the majority of the shows. He's literally got more standing ovations than every other non-musician comic I've ever worked with, because musician comics get standing ovations pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
But straight stand-ups do not get it very often. It's very rare. Like sometimes I don't see a comic get it in a year. I've never had one in my life. This guy, I've seen him get at least 10. And I've only seen him do like 15 shows. That guy was fun to work with because he will abuse the audience with laughter. They will be in pain from laughing. This is a true story. I seen one time, it was a show in Ocala. He made a girl, she had to use the bathroom so bad but didn't know where it was, so she didn't want to leave the show. She finally had to go. She just went to the first door she found, and it was a storage room. And the owner of the club happened to be in there and talked to her. She asked where the bathroom is, and he walked out and didn't pay much attention to her. Well, I guess she couldn't make it. She stayed in there, and she peed on the floor and then left out the back. This is how good Del Jones is. He literally made a girl pee on the floor. Yeah, that was fun.
As far as comedians that have gimmicks, puppets and magic and stuff like that, are there any that you actually find funny?
It's everyone's got their. I like uniqueness. I like that. Carlos Salazar, I think is his name. Angel Salazar. Sorry, Angel Salazar. He was actually in the movie Scarface.
Mm-hmm.
He's this little short guy, one of the gangsters in there. He's a prop comic like that. He's the only one I think really I can say is truly a funny prop comic. Maybe Carrot Top, but I've never seen him live.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Angel Salazar is something different. I don't know if you've ever seen the documentary Comedian for Jerry Seinfeld. He's the guy at the end where Jerry has to follow, and he's dancing on stage in a thong. Yeah, that he's something else.
Heckling. I've heard Jamie Kennedy say that it's one of the worst things about stand-up comedy. What are your opinions on heckling and hecklers?
There's two different kind of hecklers. There's one where they don't realize they're heckling and they think they're just being a part of the show, where they're just talking, they want to comment. That's the majority. That's probably 98% of the people that heckle. A lot of times they're drunk. Usually it's women. I don't like it, but I don't mind it. I can't stand comics who use the phrase "I destroy the heckler," because these people paid to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So if they want to say something, I'm not going to stop them. I'll usually try to ignore it at first, but if I see if it's disrupting the show, then I'll comment. And sometimes I'll let them know they're pissing off the rest of the audience. Then there's that 2% where they're like, you suck. They're really trying to destroy the comic. Those are the worst, but those rarely happen. I've only experienced 2 in my entire 11 years that have done that to me. And I haven't seen it done that very often to other people. Usually when they do it, it's because not that the comic sucks, but the comic said something that offended them. That's when it happens. Usually those people are the people that have to be asked to leave.
That seems to be the hot button thing right now, is being offended. People think that they no longer have the right to be offended. As a comic, do you feel that the comedy should start drawing lines of where they're pushing their comedy in order to keep that majority silent? Because that majority seems to want to go after the comic or go after a person in general and try to destroy their life because they're offended.
It depends. There's some comics that, usually it's newer comics, I think that they think comedy is pushing the envelope. That they think that if they're a great comic, the more people they offend. I've actually seen people write this on Facebook. You're not a good comic unless you offended half the audience and the other half like you. That's not true. I think the majority should like you. If you offend the others, that's okay, but don't try to. Don't go out of your way to try to offend somebody. If it happens, it happens. There was a show I worked with one time with a guy, a great comic. I forgot his name. He actually passed away a few years ago. He was doing crowd work on stage. He wasn't even doing a joke, and he mentioned something about an alligator eating somebody. It was not offensive at all, but this lady literally got up and started screaming and ran out screaming. I was outside the bar, and I thought someone got stabbed by the way she was screaming. And then she was demanding an apology from him because he said something about someone being eaten by an alligator, and her aunt just happened to be one of the 5 people on Earth that was killed by an alligator. So she was offended by that. But you know,
those are people that kind of don't. There's no way that we can know everybody's past.
And even still, like, she probably would have found something. Her friends that were with her left the show early, and you can tell when they're walking out, like, that's Diane. That's just the way she is. We're used to this. So those people that get offended, they should not go to comedy clubs. And a lot of times they go to comedy clubs and they know how offensive somebody is. Like, you don't go see Daniel Tosh. Everyone knows how Daniel Tosh is. If you're offended easily, don't go see him. You don't go see Lisa Lampanelli if you're offended. That's what she does. You go see Jeff Foxworthy. He's not offensive. You can go see Seinfeld.
But are you getting the same kind of quality when you go with someone that plays it safer for the audience, though?
Yeah, I mean, everyone has their own thing. I mean, you can be funny without being offensive. I insinuate a lot of things, but I've never been called offensive, and I don't really cuss on stage. Mm-hmm. But another comic could do my same act and word a little bit different and be extremely offensive.
Are there any subjects that you actively stay away from in your act? I
try to stay away from religion and politics, and even sometimes sports, because those are the 3 that will really divide your crowd. So, sports you can get away with a little bit, but religion and politics, religion's not as big of a deal at most comedy clubs because super religious people don't go.
Mm-hmm. Especially politics, on a Wednesday or Sunday night.
I've seen a lot of comics that have been having a killer set, and they'll do some politic-related material, and they'll put their own opinion out there, and it won't match the rest of the crowd, and the crowd will instantly hate them.
Do you think that's more of a geographical thing?
Yeah.
So have you noticed like big swings in the audience from like one county to the other?
Yep, I've seen that a lot.
Where are some of the more regressive counties, or yeah, I guess you could say. I guess regressive would probably be the best word.
Pasco.
Really?
Yeah. Pasco County. Crystal River, is that part of Pasco? Is that? I don't know. Crystal River is one of the worst. The Tampa Bay area for the most part is pretty good. Pinellas, most of the areas in Pinellas are good. Hillsborough, there's not really a problem anywhere, but even still, you still get a portion of the audience that might be a little bit, not the entire crowd, but you get a portion, you'll still lose. No matter where you go, you'll still lose somebody for politics.
Is it better the more diverse the metro area is? It seems to be your better audience, or is there really no?
That's what I like. Mm-hmm. I like because I like know that I'm playing a majority. I'm playing a different people, mm-hmm. But to really do extremely well, if you get that audience that agrees with everything you're saying, and you're what they like, they'll love you more. They're the ones that'll buy your merchandise, and those are the comics that usually will be better off financially by just finding their crowd and just doing just that audience, and not playing to the mass.
When it comes to audience reactions and reviews in general, do you have to have a pretty thick skin to be a comedian?
Yeah. I don't really get reviewed often. That doesn't happen too often. The worst critics are comics. There's no one that'd be more brutal than another comic, and bookers, but I'd rather that than someone come up to me and say, you did good. I know when I did good or not. I can tell by the people laughing. And if I did bad and someone comes up telling me I did good, that hurts worse than someone come up to me and say, hey, you did this wrong, because they're lying in my face.
Are they doing it more out of like being part of that whole brotherhood of comedians, or is it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of comics, it's a friendly thing. It's like, your best friend should be able to tell you anything. Well, that's the way comics are. We can talk about anything when we know each other. Even if sometimes we don't, we'll tell each other if it's another comic. We don't hold back, because we want, a majority of us, me especially, I'm more focused on a good show than a good performance myself. I'd rather people leave there saying that was the best show I've ever seen than leave there saying that show sucked, but that one guy, Paul Smith, was amazing.
Have you ever had a bad enough night where you thought about just giving it up altogether?
Yeah, it happens a lot. North Carolina was like that. North Carolina, I did North Carolina, and it was a long drive up there. I did High Point, North Carolina, which is a town that's basically built on furniture. Only 2 months of the year is this town even alive. The rest of the time, nothing happens. At 5 o'clock on Friday afternoon, on Main Street in downtown High Point, I walked out and I laid down in the middle of the street because there was no cars coming anywhere. There was 22 people total that came to 2 shows on this long drive, and they gave me a chance. They were not mean. They literally were watching me the whole time and wanting to laugh, and they didn't. Maybe 4 people of the 22 liked me, and that was like, that sucked, because these people gave me a chance. I couldn't blame them, and they didn't like me. But then I go do some place like Crystal River, I hate. They usually like me there, but they'll talk. And I leave there mad, and I never want to go back there, but I don't want to quit because I know they like me. The High Point was like, wow, I suck. I need to give this up. But then I go to somewhere else that I'm used to doing, another town, and Ocala. I don't know what it is about Ocala, but I always do well there. And then I'm like, oh, I know I'm not quitting.
What's the type of crowd in Ocala?
Well, the places I've done, they want to laugh. They just, you stay away from religion in Ocala. You stay away from making fun of John Travolta in Ocala. Horses and the Gators, and you're okay. They will laugh at everything else in Ocala as long as you don't offend what they love. It's...
How do you judge what your audience is going to be like? Do you just kind of look at the way they're dressed or their mannerisms?
Well, yeah, you look at the audience, the way they're dressed, the area, comics to go before me, and then if I don't have that opportunity to really judge too much, I have my act where I test jokes for a steer what I do after that. And if I can tell they're not liking something, I bail on that joke and I go to another, and they don't realize that the joke is over, because my joke is not only one punchline and that's it. I usually have a story and I have multiple punchlines and taglines in it, so I can start it and end it. They don't even realize that wasn't the whole joke. I can test my audience, so I know how to weave in and out of things easily.
What's your writing process for doing your act?
Well, usually I bring with me a recorder anywhere I go, although I don't have it today because I brought another phone that I use now. But if I think of anything funny at all, I put it in the recorder. And sometimes I'll force myself to write on a subject. I'll do like an essay, and I'll write about a subject or an event, and then I'll go back through it. And it won't be funny, and then I'll find little lines and make funny inside of it. And I'll do that for 2 hours, and I may find 1 minute that's funny. And then I'll work on that minute, and then I'll do it on stage once. And it won't work, and I'll go right over and over again. And then finally, that 1 minute will turn into 30 seconds that was good. And then I'll start adding to that, and I spent 5 hours on a joke, and that 30 seconds that got down to is now suddenly back up to 2 minutes. is actually good, and it will take weeks to do that.
Like we were talking about before the interview, it's harder to be. There's a different type of comedy for in front of your friends or in front of an audience.
Yeah.
So how do you go about when you're writing it to even see if it's going to work, besides testing it out in front of an audience, see if it flops or if it flies?
You really don't. I guess it's kind of experience where I have an idea of what the audience is going to like, and usually what I think is funny to myself, the audience is probably not going to like. My favorite joke, the audience usually doesn't laugh at. My favorite joke is I say that I was applying for this job that I really wanted, but didn't pay very well, and I didn't think I had a chance of getting the position. And then after the interview, they offered me the job. And after they offered me the job, I turned it down. Turned it down because I figured if they were willing to hire me, then they must be pretty desperate. And I can't work for a company like that. I can do better. I love that joke, but never gets a laugh on stage. Some people laugh at it, and I'll still do it because I just love saying it. But then I got other jokes, they're just, I hate saying it, but I do it because the audience loves it every time.
Is it something that maybe that you personally just don't find funny, but there's enough other people that
yeah,
I don't know how you gauge, like, you think it's something so unfunny, but everyone else likes it. What's that difference between you and the audience that makes it funny?
I like clever written jokes. I like jokes you gotta think about a little bit, and that's why I try to insinuate a lot of my act. But really, the stuff that works is just dumb comedy, dumb hack. Just this
Waka waka kind of shit.
Yeah, just dick jokes work well all the time, and always rely on a good dick joke to get a laugh. But there's some stuff where I feel like it's too hacky, it's too close to what other comics have done. It won't be exactly like it. I'll have my little own angle on it, and I'll do it for that reason, and is that it works, and I get the crowd to like me. But I like doing the stuff that the majority doesn't get, but the people that do, I'm like, all right, I like you. You guys are my audience that I want. That's what I want. If I ever got really famous, I'd want that crowd. That'd be my crowd to come out. The people that love it, those jokes, more than they like the hack stuff.
Where are you finding that the audience likes the clever stuff more in Florida?
It's really not even the areas. It's more of the clubs. Like, I can go do the Improv. Is kind of weird because some nights it'll be like that. It depends on what the audience is that show up. The Improv is real hit or miss, but there will be nicer clubs, the places that are a little bit nicer. People that pay, that's the one thing. If a club charges money, you're going to get a better audience. They're going to be a smarter crowd. They're going to be more respective, and I like them better. The people that get a free show, they're the ones that you got to dumb it down usually. They're the ones that don't respect the show as much. They heckle more, they talk more, they don't pay attention more. Those are the places that are the worst to do.
So like side splitters, when they used to do, I don't know if they do it anymore, they always used to give out free tickets, like when we were in our teens. So like a club like that on certain nights, I think it was Wednesday night used to be their major.
Well, they do it all the time. I actually used to do that for them. Sadly, I gave up a job making several dollars an hour more to go work there. And they give out free tickets, but they make the money on the beverage. Mm-hmm. So you're not really getting anything free there. Mm-hmm. That was my favorite club to do. Period. That audience, I guess, because the area it's in, Carrollwood's not a nice area, but it's real middle class. So they're easy. They should come ready to laugh. That was my favorite stage. That audience was good, even though they're getting free tickets. They still were having to pay. They were having to invest. But the people that did pay full price were better. The Saturday crowds and Friday night crowds were better than the Thursday, Wednesday night, and Sunday night, because those are the ones that didn't get as many free tickets.
For the Improv, since it's in Ybor and you get a pretty big melting pot of people, are there certain nights at the Improv at Ybor that are better than others for your
weekend usually is the best, Friday and Saturday, because people are always paying those. They give out free tickets there too, but it really depends on the show. A lot of the times I'll do shows there, it'd be on an off night, and it'd be a bunch of other comics from the area. It'd just be not a bringer show necessarily, but a showcase night. And a lot of the comics will bring their audience. And the friends of the comic will laugh at their friend that's on stage, but they don't care about the other comics, so those aren't as good.
They're just kind of there for moral support, and that's it. They don't really give a shit.
And then sometimes with the improv on the off nights, they won't have much of a crowd. 100 people at the improv feels like 2. Yeah. It feels like nothing there. It's horrible. But 450, which is what it holds, when it's sold out, oh, that place is awesome.
If the improv were a little bit smaller of a club, do you think it would have just a better turnaround more of the time? It's got that weird kind of big empty room, more or less, when you go in there. So it's kind of off-putting.
Because it's 3 levels.
Yeah, it was off-putting the first time I went there.
Yeah, it was a theater.
It didn't feel
I
like
love
a place
the improv,
for comedy.
but it's not my favorite stage to perform on. The stage, in my opinion, is too big. It's too high up. I like to be able to be close to the audience and connect with them and see. And I can only see there maybe 30 people. You see like the first row and a half, maybe you can really connect with. So if you're not able to see the front row laughing, you kind of feel, even though you may hear it, it's weird.
Does it kind of put you off for your whole act when you get that kind of response?
Sometimes I mean, the improv usually is pretty good. I usually do well there, but I've had a show or two where I've done the improv where I haven't been doing very well, and it's pitch black in the back, you can't see anybody, and you're wondering, did everybody leave? Because you can't see anything. So you're wondering, did everybody leave? And even though it may only be like 10 seconds that I've gone without having a real laugh, if the laugh isn't what I thought it was, then I start worrying, did they all leave? Did they all leave? And then all of a sudden I'll do a joke that works, and then I'll hear, okay, there's still people here.
As far as audience interaction goes, how much do you usually do with that in your act?
I don't do too much. I stay away from it. I kind of wish I could be better at that. I want to start, when I host or MC a show, I'll force myself a little bit, but that's a skill. And I got one friend, Chris Gorgeous, who's really good at it. He will talk to every single person and be funny with it, and everyone will love him. But some comics will do it and they'll attack the audience, and I don't like that. And I don't do it because of the fact that when you start talking to the crowd, it lets them think that they can talk whenever they want, that they have permission to the show, and I just do my act.
Have you ever gotten such bad heckling that you've had to take action with the club owner to get that person out?
Not heckling, and not really at the club owner, but not talking. What I usually do if I have a table that's talking, where to the point where they're disrupting the show because they don't care, I will stop and I'll ask, like, are you guys paying attention to this? All right, who's paying attention? Is this table over here bothering you? On the count of 3, let's tell them to shut the fuck up. And usually that works.
So public humiliation kind of gets...
Usually that works. When people realize it's not them against the comic on stage, but it's them against the other 100 plus people in the room, they'll shut up. Unless they're drunk. Especially drunk women. They don't listen. In that case, they have to be removed.
Are all the clubs that you're at usually are ones that serve alcohol? Or are there any that don't?
Yeah, there's some that don't. That's a different type of audience. And these don't last because that's usually the majority of the money is made off alcohol sales. That's what we are. We're alcohol salesmen. We don't sell jokes for laughs. The highest paid comic who's not famous is this guy, John Valby, Dr. Dirty. He sings songs. He's brilliant. I don't necessarily find him that funny myself, but a lot of people do. Only maybe like 1% of the people that go to comedy clubs will like him. But he'll make $5,000 a show at Side Splitters because he'll sell out on a Tuesday night, and the alcohol sales will be through the roof. His crowd spends more money on alcohol than anybody, and that's why he's paid so well.
As far as the age of the audience, does that ever really matter? Like when you got teens that aren't buying the alcohol, but they're just showing up because of the free tickets?
Yeah. I think it's the late show Friday at the Improv. They do 18 and older instead of 21 and older, and they suck. I hate them. They're obnoxious. They'll be on their phones more often, and sometimes they'll laugh. I did USF one time. 300 kids. It was a packed house, and I was like, all right, I'm looking forward to this. Is gonna be good. And they did not like me at all. Like they didn't heckle or anything. They weren't looking at the phones. They were respectful. They just did not like my act.
They just stayed quiet all the time?
And then I did a retirement community in Lady Lake, Florida, which, by the way, I guess is the STD capital of the United States. This little retirement community. And they were awesome. They loved me. I didn't think they liked me because I talk fast, and a lot of times old people don't get me. But I did better for the 65 and older crowd than I did the 18 to 21 crowd.
If you wanted to stop doing comedy, what would you rather do instead?
Racing. That's what I love more. Racing cars. But it's
glad you clarified that, because I was going to say horse racing.
Yeah, no, racing cars. That's what I do. That's what I started out when I was 8 years old. I used to race go-karts, so I did that for years. And that was kind of another thing that got me into comedy, because I couldn't afford it anymore. It's so expensive, so I wanted something else to do that was fun. And comedy, I get paid for it.
So comedy pays the bills for your true passion, then?
Comedy doesn't really pay the bills except for gas to do comedy. Comics are still making the same as what they were paid in the late 80s when it was the comedy boom, and there was a shortage of comics, and comedy clubs were on every corner. And I know a friend of mine, he told me that he started in like 88, and he was making $40,000 in 6 months and quit his job. And that was $40,000 in 1980, working all the time as a comic. And now there's not clubs you can do every night, especially in Florida. There's very few that you can do 7 shows a week. Usually it's just Friday and or Saturday only. And the pay is still the same per show. You know, a lot of the standard pay in Florida is $75 a show to be a middle act, $150 to be the feature, the headliner rather, the closing act. And it's still that pay as it was years ago. It's not gone up anymore, but the ticket prices have gone up. Cost of gas has gone up. The comics don't make any more money.
So why do you do the comedy if it's not for?
It's not. I don't do it for money.
It's just for hobby.
Yeah. I mean, the comics. There are comics that make money, but they're the ones that you see on TV. That you know their names. Mm-hmm. And a lot of comics you see on TV are still getting that same pay, and people don't realize it. A lot of the comics that have Comedy Central specials we were talking about before. Bo Burnham had a Comedy Central special after his 18th birthday. There's a lot of comics that have that. You know, they'll be making decent living, but they won't be living like they should for someone who's that famous already. They'll be making $50,000 a year, and that's $50,000 a year minus what they're paying to travel. Mm-hmm. And they'll be someone that tens of thousands of people know who they are, and they'll pay money to go see them.
Would you ever consider moving to another state that has a bigger audience for stand-up comedy, like Vegas or even California?
I thought about moving it to LA. The problem with LA is you can't make money just in one city. Or Las Vegas, I guess, is the exception if you're a comic that can get a gig in Vegas, and I would love that. I think that'd be perfect for me, but I'm not famous enough to have that where I can just work one room all the time. New York, you can work a lot of rooms and make a lot of money, but New York's so expensive anyway. You still have to travel. And I know a lot of New York comics and a lot of LA comics. Nobody makes money in LA. They have to travel out of it. The only reason to be in LA is to try to get on TV, to get movie deals, you know, acting, commercials, television shows. That's it. It's not for stand-up.
Is that the kind of comedy you'd like to go into at some point, or is that just?
I mean, like on TV, yeah. Movies. I did a little bit of acting. I mean, it was fun. I prefer stand-up. If I could be a comic who's famous for being on TV versus a comic famous for being on stage, I'd rather be the guy who's famous on stage. I'd rather be George Carlin. He's not famous for movies he did. He was famous for stage. But then you got guys that are famous for their movies, and people come out and see them, and they won't like them as much because they're not the same person. Mm-hmm. Not that I want to be famous. I really could care less about being famous. I just would love to make $100,000 for doing an hour on stage.
What about writing comedy? Would that be something that would?
I don't think I'm that good of a writer. I can write stuff, but I take too long with it. The Daily Show, I love that show, and I have so much respect for it. I love to meet the writers and shake their hands, like that they got to write so much material, and they have such short time to do it, and be that brilliant. I'd love to be able to do that, but I don't think I could do it.